And welcome to Trailblazers Courtside on Comcast Sportsnet. Now joined by Rip City Radio and, of course, streaming live on Trailblazers.com. Mike Barrett, Mike Rice, and the head coach of the Trailblazers, Terry Sttots, our guest. As the NBA playoffs continue, Trailblazers season is now over, and Coach got home from Memphis, exit interviews, and a big exhale, I assume, even though it's disappointing because you'd rather be playing. But have you had a chance to hash through the feelings at all yet of the season, of the playoff series and all of that? Or is that more of a process that takes a little longer?
Yeah, you certainly give it a lot of thought immediately after. And it was very disappointing how we lost in the playoffs. And, the end of the season, of the regular season, was kind of leading into it. And, I was thinking today about how last year, with 8 to 10 games to go, we were two games out of not being in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And we actually had a better record this year with 10 games to go than we did last year with 10 games to go. But we had already, basically with 8 games to go, we had clinched the division more or less. We were kind of locked into the 4th seed. Maybe we could have gotten home court if we had won a few games, but it just had a different feel at the end of the regular season, even though in many ways, as I've said, the regular season was better than the previous season. But the playoffs has such a magnifying impression on how you feel about a year. And obviously last year we beat Houston on a great shot, and it kind of took the sting off of losing to San Antonio. The Memphis we had higher expectations, and it just leaves a little bit of a sour taste.
So the last couple of weeks of the season being, and we talked about this on the air too, the fact that your place was already cemented, did that affect you in games 1 and 2, the start of the series, the fact that you didn't go into the playoffs maybe with that just desperation and sense of urgency?
Yeah, I really don't know, but certainly, I look back to a year ago when we win 9 out of 10 going into the playoffs. We're feeling good about things. We're playing at a high level because we needed to play at a high level to get the 4th seed, and we weren't guaranteed anything until a few games left in the season. So we were playing at a high level. We didn't have a rhythm going into the playoffs. There's no question. I mean, we lost our last home game to Utah, certainly to a young team that played very hard, but certainly a team that we should have beaten. And we had some players banged up that missed some games, and not even talking about Aaron and Durrell and their injuries, but we just didn't hit stride. And then you throw in the Brooklyn game where we had to play cross country for a game, and we didn't bring all our guys. The last 8 games just did not have a rhythm that lent itself into the playoffs.
You talk about rhythm and how important it is. Injuries really kill rhythm. You look at Conley, J.R. Smith, and Kevin Love are out tonight, and you're bringing in James Jones and Michael Shooter. Mike Miller. It'll come to me.
Yes.
But these are guys that haven't played all year, and you had a certain rhythm with Durrell Wright, with Wes, and how much did that affect how you played?
Well, you never like using excuses, using injuries as an excuse. But the fact is, you win with talent in this league, and I think that on a given night or over a week, 2 or 3 games, you can muster enough to overcome that. But in the end, talent wins, and there's certain, obviously there's a margin of error there, but. When we lost Wes and then Aaron got hurt and Durrell got hurt, we weren't the same team, and that's everybody knows that. And it's not to say that we couldn't have played better and had a better performance in the playoffs. But the truth is, Memphis beat us 4-0 in the regular season, and they were a better team than us, and they played better than us. And the reason, I shouldn't say the reason, but one of the reasons we won Game 4 and were competitive was that Mike Conley was out, and they're not as good a team without Mike Conley, and that's a reality.
Do you look back to Game 2 maybe, and you guys get off to the great start, and it seems like you have some momentum? Are there spots in the series where it felt like things could have gone either way, or was it an uphill battle knowing you're shorthanded? Was it just not where you're conceding, but where you're saying, gosh, we're up against it here? Because it felt like there were a couple of times, the start of game 2, and then even in game 3, because that was a close game, a one-possession game in the final 2 minutes. You get that one, all of a sudden you get game 4, you're tied up, and you get a game 6.
That's I look back when I was in Dallas in the year we won the championship. We swept the Lakers and the first 3 games could have gone either way. Honestly, they were up 18 in game 1, and they had a shot at the buzzer to win the game, and we won game 1. Game 2 and game 3 could have gone either way, but we won them, and we ended up sweeping them. Well, it goes down the record books that we swept them, and it looks like, well, they took care of business there pretty easily, pretty handily. And the reality, it wasn't easy. You talk about game 3 and game 4. With 2.5 minutes to go in game 3, it was a 3-point game. With 2.5 minutes to go in game 4, it was a 2-point game. We were down 3 and we were down 2. The difference was we made the right plays in game 4. We won a game, and in game 3 we didn't. But it's hard to look at game 3 like that because we ended up losing and we go down 0-3. I think the disappointing thing for me was in game 1 and game 2 was we could not get a rhythm offensively. We had a lot of good looks. You got to make shots, especially against a good defensive team. And we had a lot of good looks, and we got down, and we just couldn't dig ourselves out of a hole. And it felt like that game put us in a hole at the start, and we just couldn't dig out of.
But an odd series in that, Dame struggles in game 1. CJ doesn't play well in 1 or 2. LaMarcus struggles. He has a good game 1 numbers-wise, and in game 2. And then all of a sudden the series ends with Myers and CJ are world beaters. So the evolution of a series in just a 5-game series was pretty drastic.
Well, it was, and I'm really pleased that CJ and Myers finished the series strong. And obviously, CJ struggled in the first 2 games. He started in game 1, didn't necessarily play well, but he came on strong. And for a young player to get that experience and get that confidence, that was really good. And Myers played in every game, and he came on, and really in game 4, the shots that he hit in game 4 made the difference, even in the second half when he didn't score. And going forward, to have those 2 guys have the series that I shouldn't say series, have the last 2 or 3 games that they did, really provides the momentum and provides the positive narrative going into next season.
Looking at that position, you talked about Myers-Leonard, that power forward position in the NBA now. In the playoffs, we're watching Millsap, we watched Ryan Anderson, we watched Draymond Green as the power forward is that getting to be almost as important to have a stretch 4 as it is having a good point guard?
I don't know if it's more important. I think it's certainly it's become a factor in the NBA. I mean, you look at Memphis; they don't play that way. They'll play Jeff Green at 4 every once in a while,
but their 4 can score inside.
Oh yeah, and so can LA. And what I liked about Myers' play was not so much. I love the fact he made shots, and I love the fact that him being on the court helped our offense, especially in a series where we were struggling to score. But we wouldn't have been able to do that if he didn't hold his own defensively.
Right.
And one of the positives is being able to play LaMarcus and Myers together so that Myers still guarded the 5-man, still guarded Gasol, and LA could guard the 4, but then we were able to take advantage of it at the other end. And that's, I think that's the biggest growth that Myers had, was his ability to be able to defend his position better than he did earlier in his career.
You talked about him early on, and people mentioned that things maybe in his first year, things didn't come as instinctual to him, and maybe as they did to other players. But it really looks like the game has slowed down for him. Seemingly, he fits perfect in your type system. You talked about your Dallas team, and I don't want to compare him to Dirk because then everybody goes crazy. But of that style of player, a guy who can step back and hit threes, the way he played in games 3 and 4, well, in 5 as well, really seems to fit your system well. Did it almost, was it like as the door was closing on the season, you mentioned good momentum going forward, but perhaps open the door to new things, not only for him, but in your system using a guy like that?
Well, we'll see what the roster has,
right,
obviously. But the fact that Myers has a skill set that is valuable in this league, and he's gotten better defensively. His next his next challenge is going to be, for example, it was difficult for him to play against Jeff Green when Jeff Green was playing a 4. He's a very quick off the dribble, and in game, I believe it was game 1, where Jeff Green went at him like 3 or 4 times right in a row, and it was a tough guard for him, and understandably so. But the fact that he's been able to improve his defense and gain confidence in his offense, and on top of that, now there's a scouting report on him. And, you know, in game 4, it was obvious how much him being on the floor mattered, because all of a sudden Marc Gasol wasn't next to the rim anymore, or he's 2 steps further away than he normally would have been. And that spacing allowed CJ and Nick and Damian to get to the rim and create opportunities for us.
You know, you talk about versatility in the offense. In the defense, I'm watching Golden State play, and they had Iguodala, they had Barnes, they had Draymond Green, they have Livingston, who could check multiple positions. Is that something that you really are looking at in the NBA now as a coach to defensively?
Yeah, and you know what? One of the things that I think got overlooked a little bit for us was LaMarcus's ability to guard those type of players. You know, L.A., for us to be able to switch L.A. onto point guards and for him to guard mobile foremen, and then not to him be able to do that, and then we create the mismatch at our offensive end because they have to figure out how they're going to guard him either in a pick and roll or a post up. So LA's versatility defensively, I think, was really underrated. And to your point, he did the same thing that Draymond Green did, only he's 6'11" or whatever he is. So LA's defense really helped in those situations.
We'll take a quick break. Coach, thanks for staying here. We'll keep you on until, well, at least another segment here before we turn you loose. But the head coach, Terry Sttots, our guest tonight here on Trailblazers Courtside. We'll take a break, have more with the coach right after this. Welcome back to our Moda Center studios on Comcast Sportsnet, Rip City Radio, and Trailblazers.com. You've got Trailblazers Courtside, Mike Barrett, Mike Rice, the head coach of the Trailblazers, Terry Stotts. And, Coach, we talked Myers in the last segment. I want to get one more thing before we move on a little bit. But 50, 40, 90, we talked about this during the season. Myers shoots 51% from the field, 42 from 3, 94 from the free throw line. So he's second best when you and he hit the minimums. I mean, you know, a lot of times a guy will shoot a percentage, but he doesn't qualify to be listed among the, you know, you're talking about Kyle Korver, Myers, and Steph Curry, guys who were around, those guys were around 50, 40, 90, but, you know, only Korver shot a true percentage that was higher than Myers. To have a skill set like that and be 7 feet, that's something that doesn't happen very often.
You know, I have an email here somewhere, but, you know, his minimums of whatever it was, 43s and 30 free throws and I don't know what it was, 100 field goals or whatever it was. When you put those minimums of what he did historically, I mean, you're talking Bird and Nash and Nowitzki, and I mean, it's incredible. And when you put those minimums that he met, his minimums, and so I don't think I don't know if people appreciate what an accomplishment. Right. As great as Kyle Korver was, and he flirted with all 3 of those, he ended up not getting any of them.
Right. Yeah, right at the total end, and Steph didn't quite get 50 from the field as well.
CJ, in that last game, his ability to get to the rim off the dribble, how can he improve his game on that? What do you look for in his future?
You know, I think at the offensive end, he's very talented. He can shoot. He shot it with confidence, and we know he can do that. What I would like to see him do is become a better pick-and-roll player. You know, he's very good off the dribble and taking his guy and creating his shot, and that I don't want to take away that strength. But to be able to play off a pick-and-roll and to make his teammates better will be the next step. And the rate in which he does that, we'll see. But I think the most important thing is I think he's kind of figured out what works for him, and that's in this league. When you figure out what works for you, then that's something to build on. And then, you know, like any young player is defensively is just figuring things out a little bit sooner, seeing things happen before they happen, anticipate a screen, anticipate a cut, all those things that just take time for young players.
Huge moments. You already talked about it last year in the playoffs. Dame's shot against Houston. They are certainly a blessing. They can also be a little bit of a curse. They set a bar sometimes you can't achieve. You can't re-achieve or achieve again the next year. Dame's season, though, when you go back and look at it, short of massive playoff success, was as successful, especially given the fact that, with what we talked about with CJ, he wasn't in the scouting report necessarily for Game 4. He certainly was for Game 5, and he still did it. Talk about Dame's season. I know he was disappointed at times when he had, when he loses Wesley. Clearly, when you lose your wingman and a guy who stretches the floor, teams can collapse around him a little bit more, take the basket away. But with a lot of people looking at him and focusing on him, it was still a successful season for him. And I know he was maybe as hard on himself as anybody, and that's what the great ones are. But how do you sum up his season?
First of all, with team success. And, as I mentioned, we won 51 games and win the division, and with 10 games to go, it was a better season than the previous season. So when you look at the team success and the integral part he was to that, I would say he had as good a season. There was the All-Star controversy, whether he should have made it or shouldn't have made it or whatever. I thought he was an All-Star, should have made the team anyway, but the fact is he did make the All-Star team. So again, look, what happens most recently kind of taints your view on things, and obviously he didn't have a great playoff series or one that one that he's had before, but I don't think it diminishes what he accomplished for himself and for us in the regular season.
Wesley Matthews, how do you see his summer, his coming back? How does he fit in the plan?
I don't know. And he's going to be a free agent, and we'll see how that works itself out. But regarding him and his injury, if there's one thing I know, if there's one guy I would never count out, it's Wesley Matthews. I don't know if I've ever seen a more determined young man do what he's done so far in his career, between being undrafted and then coming in here and just thriving. In these 3 years that I've been with him, he just kept getting better and blowing away expectations of him. So I don't know I'm not a doctor, obviously. Achilles I don't think is as bad as it used to be when I played. I mean, it was the death knell when you got an Achilles, but players come back. You look at what Elton Brand did after he came back from his Achilles. So he's certainly going to be a very good player next year. And
would you say that's a tough decision for Neil O'Shea?
Neil has a ton of
tough
he's got
decisions.
a ton of tough decisions. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
But the good thing about that, and I'm glad it's not. I make enough tough decisions during the season. Let him have the summer, but he's Neil is remarkable in his not only his talent evaluation, but in constructing a roster. And whatever happens this summer, we're going to be very competitive next year.
Was Wesley, is kind of a silly question, but I'll kind of qualify it. Was it as Wesley's loss as impactful as it seemed? And if somebody had told you maybe before that Dallas game, okay, after tonight you're going to be without Wesley the rest of the way, did it play out maybe the way you would have thought it would have?
No, I thought we would have played better. I mean, as important as Wesley is to the team, and but probably what I didn't count on was our hopes were very high. And when he went down, I mean, we had championship aspirations. We had, aspirations of winning the Western Conference. And I think that really took a lot of wind out of our sails. And as much as we tried to muster enough enthusiasm and belief to bring it, I don't know that it was there. We didn't do anything to reinforce that. And then you throw the injuries of Aaron and LaMarcus missed some games, and Darrell. We just never got enough to, I think, just give us enough oomph to think, yeah, we're going to overcome this.
So are those,
even though I think we gave it a great effort, but I don't know if it was just, when your sights are set here, I don't know if we just overcame it.
So is that the off-the-court Wesley, or is that the X's and O's Wesley, or a combination?
Both. I think what Wesley did on the court is very unique. He's a different player than Aaron Aflalo. Wesley, I didn't run a lot of plays for Wesley. I probably ran more plays for Aaron than I did Wesley. But Wesley first of all, he had a very high comfort level with his teammates, and he knew where the ball was going to go. He knew our sets. He knew how to read plays, and the ball found him, or he found the ball. And that dimension of our offense just didn't click in. And obviously the challenge that he took on the defensive end. So certainly what he gave us on the court can't be undervalued. But in the huddles, in the locker room, on the practice court. All those things were very important as well.
How do you feel? Do you have a good feeling about LaMarcus Aldridge?
No comment.
Yeah. At this point.
Come on, you're on the same size. You can't be asking me those questions.
I just,
Let's put it this way. I hope he comes back.
There you go. Well, I think we all that's pretty safe.
Yeah.
But lastly, Coach, we were going to get to this and spend a little more time on it. Game 1 of the Houston series last year, you guys win because you employ Hackett Dwight Howard. It works. It changes the tone of the game. This year, I mean, you can think of other games too, but the ones that stand out to me, Game 1 last year, the game at L.A. against the Clippers, the big overtime come-from-behind win where Nick had the great finish. That doesn't happen if you don't start fouling DeAndre Jordan. That changed that game. So I think I know where you're going to come down on this whole – I don't even know if it's a controversy or if it's just some loud detractors making noise now. Adam Silver, though, sounds like, at least from his initial comments, things aren't going to change in the intentional fouling department outside of the final 2 minutes. So you're obviously a proponent of leaving it the way it is.
I am, and I was glad to hear the commissioner voice his opinion. And I've maintained that I think it's kind of good theater to begin with. I think the interest in the fans, like, is the coach going to do it again? Is he going to make his free throws? Are he going to get a rebound? I mean, they did it last night, and the other team got the rebound and made a three. And San Antonio fouled. Clippers get the rebound, Clippers make a three. So there are no guarantees, and I do think it brings intrigue. I know there's energy in the building when he makes a free throw, the home team goes crazy. If he misses it, and the visiting team, they go crazy. So I wouldn't want to overhaul the game, the whole NBA game, because 4 or 5 players in the NBA aren't very good free throw shooters.
Right.
Because there's going to be a lot more talk with this Clipper series at Houston.
It's part of the game, and it's. I think it works it out, and I think it's good that the fact that even people are talking about it brings interest.
Absolutely.
What would you be talking about if you weren't talking about this?
We'd find something. We usually do.
Yeah.
We're here all summer, so we got to figure something out. Coach, thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
We appreciate it very much. Tell your wife thank you too, because I know you guys are hitting dinner. And
hey, this is date night.
Right.
Yeah.
She's shopping right now, so
date night.
So you got to go get her before she spends too much. We appreciate it. The head coach Terry Sttots, our guest here on Trailblazers Courtside.